Welcome everyone to Chart and our free webinar series. Today we are going to hear from Faith Whitney and Becky Randall from Noodles and Company and Even Melick from Wisetail on Mac and Skills, stirring up success in digital training. Welcome everyone.
Thank you so much, Tara. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Even Melick, the Vice President of Product at Wisetail, and I am thrilled to be here with our two exceptional guests, Becky Randall and Faith Whitney, both from Noodles Co. With over 9 years at Noodles, Becky serves as the Director of Training. She brings a wealth of experience in her years in hospitality. Faith has been with Noodles for more than a decade, rising through the ranks from shift leader to now leading the training as a training design manager. Like many of you here, Becky and Faith are part of an industry where keeping teams up to date is just as crucial as the quality of food that's delivered. At Noodles, they've mastered the art of combining innovation with training, delivering engaging learning experiences across their 474 plus corporate and franchise locations. Today, they'll share their secret training recipe, offering us an inside look at how they've crafted a cohesive learning ecosystem that drives development and fosters a culture of continuous growth. Becky, I will hand it over to you to give us a bit of background about Noodles.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. Noodles and Company originated in 1995. There are more than 450 locations. We're in 30 states. We're about 20% franchise. And for those of you that may not be familiar with Noodles and Company, we are a fast casual restaurant that originated in Colorado. We have traditional comfort dishes such as mac and cheese and baked chicken parmesan, but we also have some more contemporary dishes like our new Chipotle chicken Alfredo. There's something for everyone to enjoy on our menu. In addition to noodle dishes, we also offer some fabulous salads and soups. And we are proud as a company to say that every dish is prepared fresh and made to order. So as we get into our experience with rolling out digital platforms, we can go to the next slide here. Standardized training, we all know, provides support to every role in the restaurant, creating an understanding of expectations. It is an incredibly important piece to have as you're looking at training and holding teams accountable. For us, training communicates messages that set the standard that we hold our teams accountable for, and also provides what does success look like. So we also are able to provide that ability to develop. Restaurants are changing constantly, whether it's a new menu, new dish, supply chain difficulties, system updates that we rely on, food safety expectations, and being able to react and communicate to these messages with a digital platform gives our teams the ability to succeed. The challenge we face is making sure the ongoing training and development courses that we create and manage are all up to date with all of these changes that are happening sometimes every week. So when we look at how we have incorporated technology into learning and development, we began this journey about 9 years ago. Our role as a training team is to really ensure that we are setting team members up for success by providing not just the training that they need to be successful, but providing some cutting edge tools that make the training engaging. So when we look at our first step to this process, it was really looking at the materials that we had and reformatting our current procedures. So most of our procedures, printed materials, were very text heavy, a lot of bullet points. And when we were going to move to the digital platforms, we really wanted to make sure that the documents that we were posting, we weren't just taking from a paper version and posting them, but that we were taking an opportunity to reformat those and make them very engaging, make them easy to read, easy to reference, and making sure that our teams were able to understand the process at a quick glance. So it was a win for our teams to have the information, the correct information at their fingertips. Going digital, obviously we can update things very quickly, and we didn't have to worry about outdated pieces in the restaurant. Our challenge is keeping it organized and easy to find. So we learned that as we were going through this, everyone wanted to have a standard and a procedure out there for their department or things that they owned. And there's a fine line between having information that is readily available to the teams that can be understood very easily and found very quickly, to having so much information out there that it makes it difficult to find the pieces that the teams need in the moment. So we revisit all of our materials that are posted often, as I mentioned, and we all know that things change a lot. And so it's just making sure that we're taking a step back and revisiting how things are structured to make sure that we're still following our commitment to make sure that things are easy to find for the teams.
So I'm really curious, Becky, as you're thinking about how you talk about revisiting, right? How do you look at curating some of that content? What does that look like? Do you get feedback? What does that look like for your team?
We get lots of feedback. And so it's, but we also look at, some of our tickets where teams are looking for information and they haven't been able to find it and they're reaching out to ask questions. Well, then we need to take a step back and look at that subject and make sure that it is easy to find. We also kind of audit our own things. And so we just go in, and if we're adding additional information, say we rolled a new system or a new process, we look at that entire category of messaging at that moment in time. So we're not just taking a moment to update or add information. Let's take a step back, and as we are adding information to that section, does it also need to be reworked a little bit? Do we need to make it easier for teams to be able to find that? So we're always looking at it as we're adding things, but our teams are fantastic, and they provide feedback and questions. They're always looking for information, and so when they can't find it very quickly, they certainly let us know that, and then we can go in and see what we can do to make it easier for them.
I think that is so great. It gives them investment, right, in the programs that you're delivering. And so I know Faith is here, and I think she's going to talk to us a little bit about some of those more specific programs.
I sure am. So if we wanted to go to the next slide, we'll jump right into kind of the beginning, the team member training. So when we first went into or rolled our digital platforms, we took our current program that existed on paper materials, and we looked at the number of days, and we kept the number of days, and we transitioned it over to our LMS. And when we did that, we built our training program based off of the tried and true classic method of tell, show, do, but use the digital platform to help kind of enhance each program. So moving or transitioning to the digital platform allowed us to share more information with teams in a more engaging manner. And we were so successful, I guess, with the front of house, our front of house transition, especially, that when team members got to their last day of training with the new digital platform, when they got to the last day of training, like they did not need it. They were ready to jump in. They were ready to work their shifts. So we were actually able in this last year to be able to remove a day from our front of house training and being able to provide that benefit to our teams of getting in a fully trained team member a whole day sooner. That was a huge win for our organization. And then looking at our back of house training during the transition, we were able to start training all our back of house team members on all of our stations within their training period. So that way, by the time they were done with their training period, they were cross-trained on all stations, which made it easier for us to schedule our teams. And that also allowed our team members to not only know what their own role is, but how their role supports other roles. And it just made it more efficient in the kitchen, with team members being able to jump in and support whichever station needed a little more help. And then as we were doing that and making that transition, we kind of categorized our training into different groups. So we brought over and transitioned the stuff that team members absolutely needed to be successful on. We transitioned that into our digital platform, but then we also looked at what material would be too much too soon. Maybe that material can be introduced later after they've been enroll for a little while. So when we look at our current training platform, digital platform, we really focus on food safety. How do you work your station? And then how to read the kitchen screens, and how do you understand and process the information that's coming into your kitchen, so you can be efficient on getting dishes out. And then speaking of that, we did not actually train, we transitioned away from training on each individual dish. Instead, we started to focus on overall processes and cooking methods. So they understood before they went into shoulder-to-shoulder training, this is a generic process. These are the steps that is going to happen every time when I work this station. They don't get the minutia of each different ingredient that goes into a dish. That is not part of the digital training. We leave that for the shoulder-to-shoulder training, because that's where we find team members really start to understand the intricacies of each individual dish.
So I love that concept of sort of using your digital training platform to help create that foundation of understanding and learning. And then that shoulder to shoulder is really definitely more of that. What are the brand components, like the different flavor profiles? And I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that as you roll out new savory substances and dishes that Becky was talking about earlier, it allows you to swap in those ingredients, because those are the nuanced pieces that you can get shoulder to shoulder rather than having to revisit training from ground zero. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. As we roll each new dish, whether they're using ingredients they're familiar with or they have brand new ingredients, they definitely get the opportunity to see how those are going to work through our rollout or digital rollout training. But then they have the opportunity to make those dishes throughout the rollout training process and taste dishes. And I'm sure that's one of everyone's favorite piece of rollouts is getting to try the new dishes and see the new flavors.
Who doesn't love a noodle or two? So I'm assuming that you also have manager training that goes along with your team member training.
Yep, we do. So after we got our team member training all up and running, we started to look at our manager training and development. So our focus as a company is to provide opportunities for growth and development at every level. And at the time when we made the transition, our training program for our internal candidates did not align with our external candidates. So we took the opportunity to make sure internal candidates and external candidates were getting the same experience, and that our internal promotes had a career path and growth. So when we looked at manager training, we did it a little different than team member training. We created content that showed the expectations of the role. And then we created content on why you would use a system and when you would use a system, and really getting them excited about systems and tools. And then during shoulder-to-shoulder training, they would go into the more specifics of the system. But the digital platform was really to introduce them to the system and get them excited about it and introduce them to the tools that they could use to be successful. And then Becky kind of mentioned this before, but when we look at that training, there's so much information you could provide. The challenge is determining what information we put in our courses and what we leave for shoulder-to-shoulder training. So we definitely take our time and revisit each of our development programs to make sure we are providing the correct training on our courses versus our shoulder-to-shoulder training. So, and then finally, some of our development programs and specifically. We don't provide a set guideline or time structure for them, our managers, to complete those. They are driven by the manager or the team member themselves, along with their GM. So it's really up to the team member going through training to decide when they're ready to move on to that next step and when they're ready to get that development. And so that development is always there and accessible to them to complete when they're ready for it. So, and then we know it's hard to find time amongst all the changes for training and development during your shifts. So we do try to provide reporting to our managers. So when team members are completing their training, and when they are starting to take those development courses, everyone in our leadership team is aware that people are starting to progress through training and they're maybe ready to start taking the next step so they can have the conversations they need and making sure we're setting everyone up for success and setting their expectations for the next role.
So it sounds like there's a continuum, right, of starting out with entry levels, frontline, front of house, back of house, and then it sounds like you have created programs that have a tailored approach that build on all of those learnings for what I would assume, the goal is to have those internal promotions. We know based on a lot of research out there that people want to stay with organizations. They want to grow. They have loyalty to the companies they work for, especially if they're given the right tools at the right time to do their job. And so it sounds like you have created sort of that end-to-end experience, expecting people to grow within Noodles and Company.
Yep. We definitely introduce the next step. At the end of your current program, you're always introduced to what the next step is. Even if you aren't ready for it, we make sure it's always available for them, and they know what their path forward is.
It's the whole, but wait, there's more. Yeah, no,
Yes.
I really like that. What about ongoing training, sort of the continued need for access to materials?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit, but again, we always want to provide a path forward for our team members and make sure they understand what their next role is and what their development path is. So we have on our digital platforms, team members can see that the whole tree, not just the next level, but what the next level after that is and after that is, and really just getting them excited about it. And we make sure we give team members the information they need. So if they are ready to move into the next role, they have the information they need, and they know what the expectation is when they go to their manager and say, hey, I'm ready to move to the next role. So it's not just the manager going to the team member and saying, hey, I think you're ready. It's the manager, or it's the team member, sorry. It's the team member saying, I'm excited, I'm ready, let's do this, let's move up, let's get me to the next spot. So we really love that our team members are sometimes the ones driving their career and bringing their passion to the role and wanting to move forward to the next step. So, and then alongside our training and development programs, we have found some other opportunities to provide development to our teams. So we have somewhat recently moved our line checks, moved our line checks to a digital platform. So moving those to a digital platform allowed us to provide a lot more information about food quality and standards. So as they're going through the line checks, they see exactly what our expectations on our food should be, and if what they have meets that. So that's a really cool quick learning opportunity every time they go in and complete those line checks. And then also we use our digital platforms to reach out to our teams directly and provide them messages on what they should be focusing on right now. So what we do is we partner with our ops leadership team, and we determine what our restaurants should be focusing on based on what's happening right now in the restaurant today. So with that, we have seen success in providing moments of micro-learning in training, which are just short, sweet videos about processes in the restaurant. And so in those videos, they aren't new. Nothing is new. It's content our team members already know about. It's processes our team members are already familiar with, but it's just reinforcing the why behind what we do and the importance of why we follow processes. And with these reinforcement moments, we have by providing these reinforcement moments, we have been able to improve on our guest metrics and helping to ensure that we provide our guests with the best experience possible. And then also during each rollout, we have multiple rollouts every year, but we've, especially to our menu, but every rollout we find a way to tie in related subjects to those rollouts. And then we partner with departments here and to make sure whatever we're tying in and whatever the reinforcement training is about, we get the information from our subject matter experts here and make sure that the message we're sending out to our field teams is concise and actionable, and that it's really going to continue either the team member experience or the guest experience in our restaurants.
So I think that is such an interesting component that we, especially in training and development, we a lot of times focus on what you talked about a little bit earlier, that tell, show, do, right? But I really can appreciate the operational component of it too, is making sure the things that we've trained, the things that we've talked about are actually being done in an appropriate and efficient way, as well as those reminders, right? And we all have those experiences where we go into training our very first day and we're really concerned about our hat. Is it straight? All of these things. So the things that we're watching on the iPad are definitely not the things that stick in our brains. And so making sure we give our team members the opportunity to continually have those items reinforced. And those micro learnings are something that we've heard a lot about. I am going to shift just a little bit slightly, since we were just talking about efficiency with operations and doing all of those things. And so beyond just the efficiency and the scalability of technology, Becky, I'm going to focus this question back to you a little bit. There are other areas that are benefited by using digital tools. So namely employee engagement and retention and performance. So what do you see as the impact of those areas at Noodles and Company?
Yeah, so I mean, training and development is an investment. Being able to provide training on digital platforms with more engaging content, more ways for team members to be able to learn the information. We have experienced much better engagement and retention from our teams, whether it's team members or managers. Companies want to move fast. We all know that, especially talking through the restaurant business. And adapting and changing to what the guest needs and wants are, we want to make sure that we're still providing our teams with a level of information that's going to make them successful. So, I mean, we can move as fast as we need to, but being able to utilize the tools to still make sure that our team members are getting the information that they need to be able to execute successfully on their shift and feel as if they have accomplished something, that we're not just throwing curveballs at them every other week with a change, and they're being surprised by something, but they're able to just come in and really focus on the things that they want to focus on. We also use our digital tools for more things than just training. As Faith was mentioning, we use them for some of our checklists for our line checks and things, but we also post benefits information on there, and we post communications on there to make sure that everybody's getting the information that they need, again, to just be successful at what it is that they're doing, and then be able to provide that growth opportunity to everyone. We ask teams to share feedback on our platforms. We have spots where they can submit pictures and showcase things that are happening in their restaurant with the entire company and be proud of the things that are going on. And so we try to utilize the platforms for celebration as well, when we're talking through, you know, promotions for training general managers and things like that too. So we try to utilize it as a go-to place for anything and everything that you would need to know, not just from training and development, but what else could you learn to help continue your growth at Noodles and Company. And providing this, we've seen some really good results. When we look at our internal GM promotions, 74% of our GMs are from internal. So that development course and all of those touch points that we try to provide from team members through the different levels of manager, we've really seen some success with that, with having 74% of our internal GMs be promoted from within. And then the tenure with those GMs, we see almost a six years average GM tenure. And when you see that, there's so many other benefits other than just having amazing general managers that know the insides and outs of everything, that can really make a great guest experience, but they can also impact the teams that they're overseeing. And so we see that GMs with that longer tenure show 44% better hourly turnover. And so a lot of wins when it comes to the internal development. What Faith was talking about earlier with those micro moments of reinforcement, not necessarily the new training, but being able to focus with ops on the things that are needed in the time for a little bit of reinforcement and focusing on really small subjects. We have seen a steady increase in guest metrics and SMG. So over a 6-month period, we have just seen those numbers rise. And we can see that the benefit of those reinforcements and those focuses are really winning out there for the teams.
So those are incredibly impressive numbers, and I'm sure all of the people listening today would agree with me. So congratulations, because what I think this showcases is the direct impact that training and development, successful training and development, can have on Noodles and Company specifically, but more broadly on organizations. And also on individuals, right? I know Faith talked a little bit about the ongoing program for frontline employees and team members to move into management roles and positions. And it sounds like general manager positions. So I have to ask, Becky, what's next? What's next for Noodles?
So for the next year, we're going to continue to focus on the internal training and development. We have seen a lot of success with that. And we just think there's more that we haven't done. And so when we look at our training general managers, here you have an opportunity with a group of people who have already excelled at what it is that they do. They're great trainers. They run their restaurant great, but they have such an impact on some of the newer managers and the younger managers. And so we want to continue to inspire those training general managers to continue to do what they do, and not necessarily get into a redundant pattern, but how can we continue to provide support for them and development for them? So we have a lot of focus around things that we'll be able to develop with training general managers this next year. But on that same side, also looking at our newly developed shift managers. And so you look at our team members who have continued their training and development and now would like to move into a manager role. It's a difficult transition to go from a team member to somebody who is leading the team and holding people accountable and trying to find that inspiration to get the teams to execute well. And so it's taking a step back and going and making sure that that program that we have created is still the right program. It's still providing the right information. But how can we also support those managers a little bit more in their development and just making sure that they understand there are people to support them. There's content to support them to help make them successful in what it is that they do.
Training and development is never done, y'all. And I think everyone would agree. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of the incredibly valuable insights you've provided. I think there are a ton of really great takeaways and things that you've done best. Also for sharing some of the challenges that y'all have worked through, because It is not an easy world out there for sure. So very much appreciate the knowledge share today. And I would love to turn it over to Tara because I'm sure we've got a few questions that have been asked throughout the presentation.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can send them into either the chat section or the Q&A section. One question has come in from, it says, are you primarily company-owned locations or franchise-owned or a mix of both?
We're a mix of both. We're about 20% franchise.
Okay. Next question we have is, what metrics have been the most valuable for measuring the effectiveness of your digital training? Have metrics beyond completion rates been helpful?
Yeah, that's a great question. We focus a lot on completion rates. We look at completion rates as an opportunity to gauge that information has been obtained and absorbed, and it's really laying the groundwork for things. We also compare completion rates and retention. We also look at the amount of days that it has taken to complete a training program, because while as Faith was mentioning, the LMS and the digital platforms that we provide, that is a component of our training, and we want to ensure still that shoulder to shoulder training is still happening, because that's still very important and never going to be replaced. And so we look at all of those numbers and compare that to the development, the retention of our team members. But as I mentioned earlier, we also get a lot of feedback. We get some anecdotal feedback from our teams as they are then promoted into that next role after training, and what pieces of information or what content, what systems maybe they weren't as confident in when they finished the training program. Where do we have some opportunities to also look at some of our programs and enhance those things? So we look at a lot of metrics, I guess, is the short answer. But completion, it really kind of sets that standard as we look at every rollout to try to make sure that we're in the 90th percentile of all team members and managers completing courses before we make any changes.
Okay, our next question is, how many locations train your general managers, and how long is their training program, training program process?
We have training locations across the country. Our goal is to have one training location for every area manager that we have. And our manager training program right now is 6 weeks for a general manager.
Next is, how was the transition from doing the line check-in digitally? Did you run into any roadblocks doing that?
I'll start this answer, and I am sure Faith might want to add a little bit to this one. But whenever you make a change, it's difficult. We went from paper versions of line checks to the digital platform, and the teams, it took some time just to get used to going and utilizing the iPad and going through that process, because changes change. It just takes some time. But it actually, after testing, the teams really enjoyed the fact that we were able to add more information to those line checks. We're looking at temperatures and obviously food safety when we're doing line checks, but we're also looking at food quality, and being able to add images of what the food should look like versus what it shouldn't look like really help the teams grow their food knowledge. But when we look at a line check to begin with, it was definitely faster for them to complete on paper than it was when we switched over digitally. But it was really trying to reinforce the benefits of the digital platform versus the paper that we were sending out every quarter and spending money on printing. So Faith, I don't know if you have anything to add to that answer.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of the same kind of points that you did. I think, as you said, having the images there of the correct what am I looking for, and if I don't have it, then what do I do? Having kind of that extra step of, okay, this isn't right. Here are some corrective actions on what to follow up on was really helpful for teams, especially new managers that are maybe new in the role. Having the kind of that extra support of extra knowledge in the line check itself was super helpful. And then I think, yeah, the reporting, being able to not have to keep your logbooks around for months at a time once they were done. You keep your office a little neater and have fewer materials lying around. I think that was a kind of a small benefit, but a valuable one for our restaurant managers especially. So.
I'm not sure if you might have just answered this or if this is adds on to this, but do you maintain hard copies, paper copies of your digital training? If so, what is the process for updating and maintaining those documents?
We don't, we only have a couple of audits that we keep hard copies of in the restaurant right now. And that's one of our projects this next year, is to get everything digital. As Faith mentioned, we used to have to keep those around, but now we have reporting that's available for the teams to really just be able to pull up reporting when needed. So less things that we have to keep track of.
Are there any samples of what the LMS training used looks like?
I don't think we have any visuals that we can share right now, but you know, when you look at our LMS, one of our goals was to really make it engaging and fun. And so when teams open up our LMS, they see a lot of videos and they see a lot of images to be able to review and see. And so it's not a lot of documents that are posted. It's a lot of videos and process and a little bit more visual.
This one I think you also sort of answered. It says, do you have any paper training that goes shoulder to shoulder with your other training? I know you said you have one thing left that you're trying to digitize, but do you plan to use any paper training at all?
When we first made the transition, as Faith was talking about earlier, we tried to make it easy on the teams. Everything was paper, and to help make that transition easy to go from paper to digital, for a time period, we had a little bit of paper. We allowed them to have, we gave them some checklists to keep some structure to the training program. Just because we didn't want everybody to all of a sudden be like, I don't have anything to hold, and I feel this is weird. And after about a year or two, we found that the teams were really gravitating to the checklists and the things that we had on the training platforms. And we found that we didn't need to print anything anymore. And so sometimes it depends on the program, but we needed to make sure that we were making that transition and that change comfortable for everybody. Not necessarily just ripping off the Band-Aid and going straight to digital, but being able to still provide some tools as the teams were getting used to change. But once the teams were getting used to using the digital platforms for a lot of things, we were able to reduce our printing on pretty much everything.
Okay. Was this the first LMS at Noodles? If so, do you have an implementation or rollout, any implementation or rollout advice?
It was the first LMS that we had, and any advice to give is to really map out the process. Really don't try to do everything at one time, because you're going to want to make the LMS engaging. And so when we were finding changing all of our paper versions, we wanted to not just throw those onto the digital platform. We wanted to take a step back and look and see what information should live on there. How do we make it more visual? How do we make it more engaging? But we really mapped out our process, and it probably took us a good 6 months before we had the majority of our things available on the LMS and programs that had been rolled out. Faith, I don't know if you have any other suggestions to add there.
No, I think one thing I love about our LMS is just it's very on brand for us. It feels like Noodles, and I think kind of that customized approach and having it feel like your own system and it's like your own home. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very it's nice to see you feel safe when you're on there, and you feel like you trust what's posted on there. So I think, yeah, first impressions are super important. So when you're ready to roll it out, just make sure it's it's where you want it to be and that people are going to have a good first impression. So as you get the opportunity to roll more content, they're trusting and enjoying all the work that you've put into rolling out the system.
Okay, do you guys use a reward system?
On our LMS, we utilize the point system. And this is one of the things that we probably, everyone wants to go after the points. And we do not use a reward system for the points yet. This has come up numerous times. But right now it's, everybody's just excited to be on that leaderboard with the most points completions.
All right, what difficulties did you encounter changing from paper recipes to digital recipes for training?
Oh, that was probably the easiest change that we had going to digital because we were able to really add a few more things. So we were able to easily add English and Spanish versions of all of our recipes. We were also able to attach videos to each one of our digital recipes that showed how to make the dish as well. So that was probably the most fun transition that we had. And the teams really took to it because obviously we're a restaurant company and everybody works for us, loves the dishes that we make. And so we were able to elevate the training for each one of our dishes when we went digital from the paper recipes.
And I'd say from like a restaurant team member perspective, not having to go through all your paper materials and, oh, like this one's old. Oh shoot, we got rid of this dish 6 months ago. That's confusing. Like, why do we still have that? Having that responsibility removed from your plate and just knowing what your digital platform is 100% correct and just being able to pull it up. No work on your end. It's wonderful.
Okay, have you found skills or topics that absolutely must remain in person with in-person training, and how do you determine that?
When we're looking at each one of our programs, I think it varies a little bit. As Faith mentioned with our team member training, we used to in the beginning train each dish, and we found that a lot of that information was just it wasn't being absorbed. We found it better to be trained with shoulder to shoulder, and so we tried to build the team member training to show how the stations work and give an overall of how we make food, and really leave some of those things for shoulder to shoulder. When we look at manager training, we're trying to create some training that really shows expectations of the role, but also showing how you can be successful by utilizing the tools that are there. And so a lot of our systems, we give an overview of things and provide the why, but we leave a lot of our systems for shoulder to shoulder because there's, again, I mean, we just feel like that nothing is going to really replace that hands-on experience and that repetition that you're going to get with shoulder to shoulder training.
What format have you found most effective for those quick reinforcement moments, micro learning moments?
We use videos. We build short, fun videos. Again, as we mentioned earlier, we're not training anything new. We're taking a subject and we're trying to reinforce it. So we're building short videos. But then we also take an opportunity to partner with ops leadership. And so every 2 weeks, we have a call with ops leadership where area managers can share some successes that they've had. Well, we're really executing this very well, and this is how we got there, so that they can share some of those experiences with maybe some other area managers who might be struggling a little bit with that consistent execution. And so it really just provides a platform for our ops leaderships to get on a call and be honest and share tips and tricks on how they're being successful. But from our standpoint, we support that with videos that are provided to the teams every couple weeks.
All right, I have 3 last questions that we will get to. How do you manage food handlers training and certificate storage in your LMS?
Faith, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I can take that. So we have, our safety and food handler training on our LMS. But actually, our certificates are housed in our people system. So there's instructions in our LMS on how to get all that loaded correctly and make sure everything is in sync. But the certificate itself is saved on our people system.
We're thinking about going more digital with our training. What helped your teams actually get on board with the change? Any major speed bumps we should watch for?
There's always the speed bump of just making sure that you have the right tools that are available. We made sure to roll out iPads to our restaurants before we rolled out the LMS, and making sure that we're not all utilizing the back office computer or making team members have to use their own devices to complete training. So that was probably the first step that we had to do. The teams are very excited about moving into a more digital age. I would say, while it's a lot of work on us to print things and send things out, it's even more work on them having to audit all the paper and the things that are in the restaurants. And so they immediately knew that there was going to be a benefit and things were going to be easier at the restaurant level for things. So I think it was a little bit more accepting when we were going to move. But again, change is hard. It's not the easiest thing. It just takes some time. And as long as we found that we were communicating how to utilize the information that was on there and where to find it, it became much easier for our teams.
Okay, and the last question is, how has the new way of training changed the way your managers actually work with their teams day to day? Has their coaching style shifted?
I mean, coaching style shifted a little bit. I think what some of the feedback that we heard from our managers is that when they're coaching a team member on the line or showing them how to make a dish or correcting something, they have all the information right there at their fingertips to be able to help explain the why behind those things. I think it has also helped our managers when we roll out new menus. Our managers get access to the courses ahead of time. They're able to absorb the information, ask questions, go through a little bit of their change curve when those things are happening. So then by the time that we roll out courses for our team members, our managers are fully in the know on things. They can help answer the questions and they can help be excited about the new dishes that we're going to be rolling out because they were able to get that information ahead of time from our team members. So it's a little bit of a change there, but I think just being able to have the information right there at their fingertips to help coach in the moment has been very beneficial for us.
Two last questions came in, which I'm going to give you. One is, was there any pushback from franchise owners for digital training? What points did you use to prove the benefits?
To be honest, I think our franchise owners were excited about going digital. And I think the change might have been a little bit easier for them. In the beginning, you can, look at some of the testing that you have done to show the benefits and just show the excitement. And you don't necessarily have all those numbers when it comes to internal development and retention and those kinds of things. But to be honest, I think our franchise partners were excited about this change. So maybe we had a little bit easier of a transition with them.
Okay, and the last question for real this time. Why don't you want team members to use their own devices for training?
It's not that we don't want them to use their own devices. We just have a policy where team members aren't on their phones while they're on the clock and working in the restaurants. But we want to make sure that we can provide them with some tools to be able to use in the restaurant and not have to use their own devices. We want to make sure that they're completing training while they're on the clock in the restaurant. And if we're going to roll out a training and development platform, we have provided the tools for them. So in case somebody wasn't able to use their own device, they're not missing out on any of the information that we're providing.
Okay, thank you guys very much. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This webinar will be on the website by later today or tomorrow. I really appreciate this, and hopefully you can join us again someday. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.